generally occurs when you're doing large fibroids does not generally occur in smaller hysteroscopic procedures. Late onset complications which are more problematic for the patient is the vaginal discharge, which generally is self-limiting, so you need to do a lot of counseling for the patient, reassuring them that it will stop. If you're doing a myomectomy as listed here, you must tell the patient that adhesions can form and she might need a sitting of hysteroscopy to see if adhesions have formed and then to remove them. So again, I keep stressing on counseling, which is very important. Failure of resolution of presenting symptoms. We as human beings tend to blame circumstances. But really, if we select our patients properly and learn the surgical technique properly, which is what we're all sitting here for, we can avoid a lot of this part of the complication, which is failure of resolution of presenting symptoms, because we should be able to then treat adequately. So I stress on patient selection. It's, for example, if we take up a patient who has adenomyosis and is presenting with abnormal uterine bleed or heavy bleeds for a case of thermal ablation, then we're not going to get much joy in that, and the patient's symptoms might even be increased. Hence, selection of patients is very important, and learning the technique. We tend to give the technique a bad name by not adhering to these 2 points. The technique is very good. It is we who have not A, learned the technique properly, B, not selected the patient properly. Now, these are some points or some things that are given in literature that after a septoplasty, we need to counsel patients about these things, that you can have early pregnancy loss, which has been documented in literature. So, counseling a patient is very important, and hence reducing this sort of anxiety or this complaint from the patient is to a large extent. When I've mentioned here 60 to 70% of Asherman cases are not cured as far as pregnancy goes. The take-home baby rate in Asherman's is less, but the restoration of periods is to a large extent achieved with doing an adhesiolysis. Almost 90%, if not more, patients get a lot of their periods restored, which is very important for our ladies in our society. Now I'm going to show you some complications, or some clips really, not of complications but situations and complications that do arise. This is a young lady who we operated on. She was a doctor who had had a couple of failed intrauterine inseminations. She had an acutely anteverted uterus, and what we found, it's a very short clip, was that there was actually a false passage which was being made again and again. There you see it very clearly, and the cavity is on top of that. So many a times I get a report of a hysteroscopy being done elsewhere, and they say it's a tubular cavity. Now for the non-discerning eye, this seems like a tubular cavity. You go in, no ostia visualized, come out, hysteroscopy done, tubular cavity, nothing visualized. But really that is why I say we must do more and more hysteroscopies, gain experience, because the most important part of hysteroscopy is recognizing pathology, to recognize where you are. And how would you recognize that you're in a false passage? You recognize by the fact that when you go in, you see more muscle fibers. You don't see glands there. You don't see the openings of the endometrial glands. And of course, your third sense tells you that you're not in the right place. So, there's a very nice paper which has been written by a couple of hysteroscopic surgeons in Jaipur who do a lot of good work, the Kumars, and they mention this very clearly, the points that I've mentioned about the glands not being seen, the muscle fibers being there, which you need to recognize that you're in the wrong place. This of course will come with experience. Now this is another case. Remember never to do tubal catheterization after doing a chromotubation, because you tend to lose your anatomy and you go into the wrong place. Now we're using laser technology here. We're using a laser, CO2 laser, to see and to cut adhesions. That is where the ostia should have been, and we were looking here and we cut into the muscle fibers. Again, same um, points to remember. You see muscle fibers crisscrossing there and no endometrial opening, gland openings. So luckily we had to do a laparoscopy in this lady, and we found that we did not go through and did not cause a complex perforation. So all is well that ends well. But it's a point to remember, a point to discuss what to do and how to do it, because this has been our learning curve, and hence you will all have your own learning curves. Now this is another clip that I'm going to show you, which was fairly uh, sort of long in our, after we'd done quite a few hysteroscopies. It was an Asherman's syndrome patient that we were doing, and as you can see, that's a perforation which we've made with our scissors. The diameter of these scissors are 1.4 millimeters, so it isn't as big as it appears. But even though we had the advantage of doing so many Asherman's cases and so many hysteroscopies, you can still perforate. And this is what I wanted to show. So we're going to have a look at this clip again. We're using just mechanical scissors here, and we actually go through the wall. But the advantage again is that we're going with the mechanical instruments. I know there has been no damage caused beyond that, so I'm comfortable with this. Again, let me show it to you again. We're cutting the fibrous tissue and we're going in, and slowly but surely you can see a thin tissue there, and beyond that is bowel. We go, we cut it, and we go through that and we make a perforation. Now these things do happen, will happen, but the question is to recognize them and to manage them accordingly. We were doing this of course without the guidance of a laparoscope. How did we manage this case? In our case, we were comfortable enough. We had enough experience behind us, so we did decrease the fluid pressure, and we went on, completed the surgery, and the patient was well and went home. This is the next clip of the same patient. That's really where the perforation occurred, and we enlarged the cavity after cutting, and we came out. I would not advise you to do that. I would say you manage her like a normal perforation. You come out, you stop the procedure there, and you manage like a normal perforation, like you would do, like we've discussed, and then come back and repeat the surgery or repeat the procedure at a later date. Maybe this time putting in a laparoscope. Now newer technology, nature, everything is wonderful, can cause a lot of joy, but on the other hand it's like a knife. It can cause a lot of harm also. For the people who live in this area, this is probably devastation. For those who come from outside, want to see beauty, nature lovers, this is beautiful. So just to drive home a point, that books on complications have been written because they occur. And it brings me back to a thing that sort of happened to me. I was given a series of complications when I started, or rather after I started out my endoscopic career, which I had seen, and I keep telling people, if I had seen that before I started, I would never take up endoscopy. But they do occur. We need to be aware of them, and we need to know how to deal with them. We cannot sort of hide our heads under the mat and think they're not going to occur. So quality staff and team, which we spoke about, quality equipment, training technique, and the learning curve, of course. We need to have a high index of vigilance and respect for what we're doing. Once you start thinking you know everything, you're going to have a complication in the next case. Thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we can take some questions from somebody. Office hysteroscopy is something that needs to be encouraged in all hospitals. I would stress very much so. It is a culture which needs to be introduced, and I'm sure a lot of the medical colleges do have facilities now most of them, the ones in Delhi of course, do have this facility. But going in for a thinner telescope, especially if you start your hysteroscopic career with a thinner telescope, you tend to be able to continue with that and learn and see your tissues. You get used to it with that telescope, and it really is no difference between the larger one and the thinner one when you've got your eye accustomed to it. I'd like to thank the Johnson & Johnson company, of course, and Foxy for this interactive session, or this session, which has been wonderful, and I hope it continues because it is something that we can have reaching the far corners of our country. Technology can be sort of disseminated, techniques, training techniques, and a lot of good can be done with this. So I hope it does continue. I thank everybody here, of course, who's come on a Sunday morning and afternoon and spent their whole day here. There are a good 20-25 people who are working behind the scenes to get this to you in the ISRO center, of course. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody's had a good session.